Every ticket stub from the golden age of steamship travel could have cracked one of language's most enduring mysteries, but they were all tossed in the trash, fed to ship furnaces, or lost to the salt air, leaving behind only the most seductive lie in etymology. You've heard it. Your parents heard it. Hell, Disney put it in a movie. The word posh, meaning elegant, refined, upper class, supposedly comes from port out, starboard home. Rich Victorian passengers booking the shady side of steamships to India, tickets stamped with P.O.S.H in violet ink, a perfect acronym for a perfect class system. It's complete horseshit. This isn't your garden variety folk etymology gone wrong. This is linguistic mythology so compelling that dictionaries repeated it, teachers taught it, and millions still believe it despite decades of debunking. The real story? It's messier, stranger, and tells us things about ourselves we'd rather not hear. The word posh takes us from Romani camps in 17th century England to Edwardian deck chairs through the detective work of etymologists who've spent careers chasing phantom ship manifests and non-existent booking records. It's a tale of colonial nostalgia, acronym obsession, and our desperate human need for stories that make sense, even when reality doesn't cooperate. Let's start with the lie, because understanding why it's so beautiful is the first step to understanding why it's so wrong. Picture 1890. You're booking first-class passage from London to Bombay on a P&O steamship. 3 weeks through the Mediterranean, down Suez, across the Arabian Sea. You're rich enough to afford the best cabins, and you know something about geography that matters. Both Britain and India sit in the northern hemisphere. Sailing east to India, the sun tracks across the southern sky, meaning the port side stays largely shaded during the day, cooler cabins, comfortable afternoons. But returning west from India, it's starboard that catches the shade and sea breezes. So the clever traveller books port outbound, starboard home. Port out, starboard home. Shipping clerks stamp the coveted tickets with P.O.S.H in large violet letters. The practice becomes so associated with wealth that the acronym itself becomes shorthand for luxury. Beautiful story, explains everything, why posh means elegant, why it emerged during the empire's height, why it carries hints of travel and sophistication. Compelling enough that Dick Van Dyke sang about it in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. Port out, starboard home. Posh with a capital P-O-S-H. Posh. Here's where it falls apart. First problem, British passengers heading to India weren't buying round-trip tickets. The journey was expensive, brutal, and usually meant extended stays, months or years of colonial service, business ventures, family obligations. Smart travellers booked their return passage when they were ready to come home, not when they left England. No round-trip tickets means no P.O.S.H stamps. Second, the geographic logic is shaky. Yes, portside might be marginally cooler eastbound, but not dramatically enough to justify premium pricing. Ship cabins were small, poorly ventilated, and miserable, regardless of which side they faced. The real luxury was having a cabin at all instead of traveling in steerage. Third, and fatal, zero evidence exists. None. The P&O company's own librarian, as late as 1962, couldn't find tickets, manifests, or internal documents mentioning this practice. No passenger letters or diaries reference P.O.S.H accommodations. No contemporary travel guides mention the acronym. For something supposedly common enough to birth a new word, it left no trace. That absence becomes damning when you realize the port out starboard home explanation didn't appear in print until 1935, nearly 2 decades after posh was already common slang. The earliest recorded use of posh, meaning swanky, shows up in 1918, but there's a tantalizing earlier clue. In 1903, P.G. Wodehouse wrote in Tales of St. Austin's about a character wearing a waistcoat that was quite the most push thing of the sort at Cambridge. Notice, P-U-S-H, not P-O-S-H. Wodehouse scholars have argued about this for decades. Typo, regional variant, evidence of a different origin entirely. When Penguin republished the stories later, editor Richard Usborne changed push to posh, assuming printer's error, but Usborne admitted he was guessing. The acronym explanation's timeline is revealing. First mention, October 17, 1935, in a letter to the Times Literary Supplement. The writer, supposedly enlightening Oxford English Dictionary editors who'd marked the word's origin as obscure, described it as an American shipping term, not British, American. 2 years later, Boyd Cable's 100-Year History of the P&O mentioned the acronym but called it a tale, not established fact. Even then, the author seemed skeptical. This reveals something crucial. The pour out, starboard home explanation emerged after the word was established, not before. Classic backronym, a reverse-engineered acronym created to explain an existing word. So if not from steamship tickets, where did posh actually come from? The most credible theories point to communities that never saw luxury steamships. The word might derive from Romani, posh, meaning half. Originally something partial or incomplete, but meanings shift as words migrate between languages. Another possibility, Urdu, posh, meaning elegant or fine. This makes sense given extensive British-Indian contact during the colonial period when many Urdu words entered English. Both etymologies follow predictable patterns of linguistic borrowing. Romani and Urdu words had been entering English for centuries through trade, military service, colonial contact. The phonetic evolution from these sources to posh tracks normal language change. But there's a deeper layer here that reveals something uncomfortable about how we construct cultural memory. The persistence of the pour out starboard home story says as much about us as about etymology. We live in acronym-obsessed times, NASA, FBI, CEO, DNA. We're primed to see acronymic origins everywhere, even where they don't exist. Linguists call it acronym syndrome. People insist golf comes from gentlemen only, ladies forbidden. It doesn't, it's Scottish goof. They claim cop derives from constable on patrol. Wrong, it's from copper, meaning one who catches. Always the same pattern, neat acronymic explanations emerge decades or centuries after words are established, usually to explain origins that are mundane or forgotten. But posh is special because its false etymology carries such cultural weight. The steamship story doesn't just explain a word, it encodes an entire worldview about British imperial elegance, about sophisticated travelers who knew which cabin to book, about a time when class distinctions were literally built into travel architecture. The real origins tell different stories. Romani slang, that connects posh to Europe's most marginalized people, not its elite. Urdu borrowing, that suggests the word came from the very culture Britain was colonizing. These origins are messier, less flattering to British sensibilities. No wonder the steamship story caught on instead. The myth also feeds our nostalgia for imagined golden ages of travel, elegant ocean crossings with deck chairs and formal dinners instead of cramped airline seats and security theatre. It captures fantasies of when luxury meant something, when the wealthy had genuine style rather than expensive brands. Most tellingly, the myth persists because it feels true in ways that transcend facts. The story captures something real about how class worked in the British Empire, even if the specific details are invented. Wealthy passengers did get better accommodations. They did have knowledge that made journeys more comfortable. The acronym might be false, but the social dynamics it supposedly encoded were absolutely real. This is how linguistic myths survive, not because they're accurate, but because they're meaningful. The pour out starboard home story has been debunked repeatedly, but keeps appearing in books, websites, conversations, because it tells us something we want to believe about language, class, and history. Modern etymology has become detective work, tracking words through historical documents, ship manifests, personal letters, newspaper archives. The tools are incredibly sophisticated: digitized text, statistical analysis of language change, computational linguistics. Yet for all our technological advancement, we still can't definitively prove where posh came from. The Romani and Urdu theories are educated guesses based on linguistic patterns and historical plausibility, not smoking gun evidence. This uncertainty bothers us. We want origin stories that are clean, complete, satisfying. We want words to have clear birth certificates. The messy reality of language evolution, gradual shifts, multiple influences, lost connections, doesn't satisfy our narrative hunger the way a crisp acronym does. Next time someone tells you posh comes from pour out, starboard home, you'll know they're almost certainly wrong. But before you correct them, consider what you're really correcting. You're not just disputing etymology, you're challenging a story that connects us to an imagined past, that makes sense of social hierarchies, that turns the chaos of language change into something orderly and logical. The real story of posh is probably humbler, a Romani word for half or a Urdu word for elegant, gradually shifting meaning as it moved between communities across centuries. It's a reminder that our language carries voices of people we've forgotten, that every word connects us to conversations we'll never fully reconstruct. Sometimes the most beautiful etymologies are the ones we'll never prove.